Good morning. Good morning. Okay, well, I'm learning a little bit more about my electronic leash as we go along. For one thing, I now see the time displayed where I'm used to seeing it. So they didn't update the unified interface and swap things around. I just failed to start the camera at the proper angle. And the last video, which I thought was magnificent, well, not the last, but one of the last videos, which I thought was magnificent because I covered positive projective psychology, is sideways. I know, I'm not going to get many views because of the way it is, but I explained a lot about myself. So I guess it kind of fits because the picture's twisted. I'm a little bit twisted. You should see my sister. She's twisted, sister. Women can't help it. Sorry, they can't. And that's the problem, is we don't recognize their true nature. And we don't realize it until we've had some experience because of all these myths that are out there. What? Sugar and spice and everything nice? And then they say this horrible stuff about men. You talk about prejudice or sex discrimination, discrimination based upon gender. Man, those things that we grew up with were extremely discriminatory, and they hid the truth. Because women are not fair. They don't play fair. They don't fight fair. I don't know what the hell. I know what the angels saw in them, because as I get older, all of these women look so beautiful to me. Well, they're young, and they got a lot of life in them, and they got a lot ahead of them, and some of them just have some magnificent hair, which of course, when we get older, we don't get to maintain that, and there are, well, where I'm at, there's some good-looking older women. Very few can have that healthy hair of their youth, and as you can see, I don't have hardly anything. But I had long hair. I had healthy hair. And there's some important things about hair, by the way. Has to do with our electromagnetic field and with our soul. So what we want to talk about today, since it's the middle of the night and I can't sleep, is the psychology. What psychology means. Psychology means the study of the soul. And I chuckle because most psychologists don't know that. Right now, you know better than the average psychologist does. It means the study of the soul. And so I am kind of stuck as one of the few in my field that understands that at this point. I feel very alone in that. So I want to get this knowledge out there. Now, what psychology has become is horrible. And historically, this has happened over time, and it's historical. And the problem occurred about 1754, if I remember correctly. Remember, I suffer from information overload. Nice excuse, isn't it, for not being able to remember things? Well, the fact is, if you don't use it, you lose it. And if you don't talk about it, then you definitely lose it. If you don't exercise it and think about it or get in it occasionally, it goes away. It gets harder to access. It's just a matter of use. Now, the real problem is that we live in a time of duality. And we're told that everything is Maya. It's just an illusion. It's not real. This is just Maya. It's not the reality. Well, the fact is that there's different layers of reality in the soul. It was Descartes who screwed us up, or should I blame it on the Pope instead? I don't remember who the Pope was at the time, but the Pope had the most incredible intelligence in the world at the time. He had his spies everywhere. kind of reminds you about Big Brother and what our government's become. And the Pope had his spies, and he knew about so much stuff. They reported so much to him that he knew that Rene Descartes, the Frenchman, was going to visit him. And he knew why he was going to visit him in advance. Why? Rene Descartes had learned the New World had been discovered, and one of the discoveries in the New World was tobacco. I know the devil is in the details, and we're going to get into the weeds here and into the minutia. But in the New World, the natives were smoking tobacco. Tobacco was indigenous to North America. It was a brand new discovery, and they had to take that stuff home and market it, make some money. Merchandise. But one of the interesting things is that tobacco, in particular what is that called? It's so active, psychoactive in tobacco. It turns out that whatever it is that I can't remember the name of because I haven't talked to in a while. Oh, what is that stuff that supposedly we're addicted to? But what we're really addicted to, this other word, I had a rough time learning it when I was younger. And I was an older college student at the time. Well, older than average. I was probably about in my 30s. And, no, maybe it was in an earlier day. Anyway, this tobacco that we sell in America is addicting because of the way they cure it and treat it with sugar, which results in creating a substance, some chemical substances, damn chemical reaction in that chimney, and hydroxyl hydrate. I haven't used that word in a long time, and I first learned it and discovered it, when I had trouble with smoking. It was one of the hardest things I ever found to quit. Nicotine is what I was thinking of. Good God, John, get your wits about you. So the nicotine in the tobacco stained the neurons, the nervous system, in animals and in man. That stuff has more of an impact on you than what you realize. And so it would stain the nervous system so it stood right out. And so what did Rene Descartes do? Well, Rene Descartes was a biologist and a book writer, if you will, a scientist, early scientist. And back then, we didn't have the printing press, or at least it was in its infancy. And so books were done by hand. So handmade books required a lot of labor. So they were extremely expensive. One of the reasons why knowledge was so slow to proliferate. Well, Rene Descartes figured out that he could use nicotine to stain the nervous system in cats. And what did he do? He drew pictures of the nervous system of cats. Of course, that required him to skin the cat. The cat had to be dead. So he was basically doing autopsies and mapping out the parts of a cat's body, and in particular, the nervous system of a cat. Well, Rene Descartes made a lot of money doing this, and he liked his living. He liked what he was getting from it. So he decided he was going to skin the big cat. He was going to map out the human anatomy. Yes, these books were very valuable, and not everybody was up to the task. I certainly probably wouldn't be. I really didn't like doing that stuff in biology. I didn't like having to dissect. So he had dissected cats and stained the nervous system with nicotine. And the colors, I guess, are pretty fabulous and pretty brilliant. And so he drew the pictures of those and published that, making quite a bit of money. He decided he wanted to do the human being. The problem was the Pope was the authority over all this stuff. And I believe at the time, and correct me if I'm wrong, and if you know better, please let us know in the comments. I'm here to learn, not just to teach you. So let's have a discussion, and why don't you contribute something to it for a change? Leave a pertinent comment if you can. I challenge you. Leave a pertinent comment. Oh, by the way, that kind of challenge was the challenge that I never passed up. I always rose up to it. And the girls, the women in college, I could hear them. I heard them talking because I had such a reputation. And what they said to each other is don't. What was the word exactly? It wasn't so much tempt as it was. It's sort of like temptation, but it was like don't challenge him. Don't whatever with him, because he's crazy and he'll do it. What a reputation to have. Well, yeah, if you're going to tell me I can't do something, the rebel in me was strong, I have to admit. And if you're going to tell me something's not possible, I'm going to do it. I did that when I stole Bing Crosby's Oscar out of the library at Gonzaga University. Yeah, I was the one who did it. My friends wanted to pull a prank, and they were talking about it, and they were trying to figure out how to steal it, and as a college prank. And of course, I was sick was I sick at that time? No, I was not. I was, me and my roommate weren't getting along too good anyway. My buddies told me what they wanted. I don't know if I overheard them or they told me what they were trying to do. Well, I'm in the library all the doggone time because I'm studying, because you can't study in the dorm very well. I was in the Smet dormitory, and the problem with it was that it was just too damn loud. And you had roommates, and I couldn't afford to do the private room thing. Oh, by the way, you see that right there? That's my puppy dog. That's what she does. But this is an old wound. It's not current. She did tear up my shorts the other day, which is why she's in the kennel, because she does it at nighttime. She's nocturnal, and it's like, yeah. And I'm working on figuring out how to get her to sleep through the night. I've got to do a dietary change. Fella told me how he was feeding his Belgian Malinois, and he said that, well, anyway, I get off at a tangent. Let's get back to the study of psychology and Rene Descartes. Can't remember the town that Rene lived in, but he made a pilgrimage, if you will, to see the Holy See, to see the Pope, Il Papa. It's kind of weird. Papa ends in the letter A, and the letter A at the end of words usually feminizes them, indicates that they're feminine. In Italian, nothing is, well, at least nothing was gender neutral. It's probably different today because it's probably gone woke ass over there too. Probably gone woke over there. But everything had a gender in Italian, and it had a gender in French. And a gender in Spanish, probably. Not so sure about German, although I should know more about that because I lived there for 3 years. I will ask my newfound German friend in the park. I will ask her. As soon as I get my ears going and I can hear again. I haven't been using the hearing aids in a while. And Rene Descartes traveled to Rome, traveled to the Vatican. He was welcomed by the Pope. The Pope knew he was on his way. The Pope knew what he was going to ask for. And the Pope had already prepared his response. And Rene Descartes had already paid grave robbers to steal bodies for him and had already dissected several cadavers. And he had already just about published his book. He hadn't published it, he had written it. It was still private matter. So he thought. And the Pope told him. The Pope prepared a magnificent speech for this. The Pope had to be prepared to look like he's the vicar of Christ. He represents Christ on the planet. He's got all the power, baby. That's your Antichrist church. Wants to be like God. That's seriously the principle. You got to remember, that's what that angel wanted to do. He wanted to lift himself up above the fellow who created him. Well, the Pope told Rene Descartes, you may keep the body. You may have the body. So long as you recognize that the authority over the soul resides in the seat of this papacy. Yeah, seat, his throne. Even Satan had a throne. It was in, I want to say Palmyra. No. It's in the Bible. Satan's seat was in, it begins with a P. It's actually a seat, a throne in the Bible. That has been reproduced several times by these Satanists, and this stuff travels around the planet. These fake thrones, these duplicates of it, and it's on display in very different places. So these Satanists have got their religion together. They really are pretty well organized. So anyway, Rene Descartes was told, you can publish your books. He got permission, so he wouldn't be burned at the stake. He wouldn't be put to death. He wouldn't have violated the authority of canon law. And remember, canon law, shot from guns, gunpowder. So Rene Descartes published and made more money. He was very happy. But the precedent was established. The duality, the split between the body and the soul occurred. It's an artificial construct. It's part of our brainwashing. It's the way our culture looks at things and has looked at things ever since that ill-fated meeting. So, as a result, we ended up with dualism. And I knew this because I had studied in Italy at Gonzaga University. And I knew this, and my chairman wanted to show me off during my orals. And he had to step in and defend my butt because I froze up, because I just couldn't think. I was rattled. But he wanted to show off the fact that I was a strict behavioralist, which is what he was. And I didn't like behavioralism, but that's what they taught at the university. I didn't like it at all. I abhorred it. But that's the science that we started with. Oh, about 1865, whatever. The university, I should remember this stuff. There was a German psychologist, scientist who... oh, well, I need to talk about this stuff more because that stuff slips my mind too much. Anyway, Wilhelm Wundt, I think, had the first laboratory. It was pretty rudimentary. What I'm trying to get across to you is that we are not strictly souls, and our souls are not separated from our physical bodies. That is an artifact of our history, of our tradition, of our mutual brainwashing, if you want, or of the Pope exercising his authority, setting precedences. He shouldn't have had that authority. And they probably were worshiping Satan at the Vatican at the time, secretly. You see, they've incorporated the Babylon Babylonian mystery religion. So what I'm getting at is that you think, and I think, that it's a spiritual battle. You think, and I think, that the soul goes on and carries on after these bodies are worn out. Is that the case? Is this the case? We don't really know. I think it is, because I think that we are an electromagnetic force field. I think it's an electric universe. And I know when I discuss this way that some of you folks are going to take this and run with it and going to discover some amazing things. And some of you are going to discover some power to leverage over your fellow human beings. That's kind of what bothers me, is that you'll weaponize my knowledge. And of course, the Eastern tradition teaches that this being that we have is a little different than what we think. And they teach that this is the inner self. This physical body is the inner self, the inner manifestation of this electromagnetic field that surrounds our beings and permeates it. And by the way, that electromagnetic field, the aura, touches other auras. And I've told you, ladies, that, and I tell you men too, that when we engage in sex, according to the ancient literature, the old technology that existed, that was from a binary language, a computer language, mind you. So those guys had computers back then. Binary language it's probably the oldest language on the planet. So when somebody wants to tell you we live in a matrix, it's like, I can support that. I can give you all kinds of reasons why we live in the matrix. So I'm trying to discuss psychology so I can discuss positive protective psychology and explain that to you, because I do want a revolution, and it's my field, and I'm not going to have time to publish. I'm not aligned with a university. I've not worked in a while. I was going to go back to work in Mississippi, but with the loss of hearing, that's not possible. It's not likely. I don't think I can do it. If the hearing gets restored somehow, then I might be able to do that. Anyway, we are facing a conspiracy so vast that we cannot comprehend it, and we don't want to even admit it exists. That's according to J. Edgar Hoover, and he uttered that in about 1956 and 57, somewhere around then. So he knew about this conspiracy because he was their errand boy. And apparently, he always reported to the people across the street. I'll have to go look at the map and see who the people are or were who were across the street. If you could do that for me and report back, I would appreciate it greatly. I know I'm asking you to do my job, if you will, but I am trying to take care of my basics and survive here. I've got too many things going on with this coach, and I'm going to attend to it. I realize the coach keeps me grounded. I realize it was given to me to give me something to do so that I don't get too carried away in the ethers and get too lost in those, so that I can stay grounded and stay occupied and have something positive to accomplish, rather than going internally, becoming too reflective, and maybe depressing a little bit. You see, that's human nature, is we go internally and reflect. And the sad thing is, we become aware. We learn the truth. We come to sudden realizations of things that bother us. And as a result, we become depressed, if you will. And if we go too far along those lines, we can even become suicidal. Now, suicidality is not necessarily caused by depression, and I know we all want to associate it with depression, but quite often, and probably on average, suicidality is actually one son of a bitch trying to get back at the other son of a bitch. You'll miss me when I'm gone. I'll show you. I'll teach you. Asshole, I'll teach you. So it was described in loving, kind, technical words by my last supervisor, last training psychologist, as it's a artifact of assholishness, if you will. It's a figment of assholishness. The person is trying to be an ass and trying to make the other son of a bitch suffer. So, and the nice thing about it, I know, yeah, right. The nice thing about it is that we kill ourselves twice as often as we kill the other son of a bitch. So we actually commit suicide at a rate double the rate we kill the other guy at. So suicides are 2 for every homicide. That's in a healthy society, fairly healthy culture. Right now in America, the suicide rate is much, much, much higher than 2 to 1. It's off the charts. But what we learned about suicide is that it's relatively constant around the planet. Think about that. So the predominance of suicide shifts from place to place. And so maybe one can make the argument that it's important that we prevail at war so that we feel good about ourselves and we don't kill ourselves as much. But the fact is, we kill ourselves and we kill the other guy too much. And we're told, thou shalt not kill. Well, it really means thou shalt not commit murder. Because if you take a life in self-defense, as horrible as it is, and as horrible as the memory of that's going to be, the haunting of it, Yahweh does bless that. That is blessed. That is natural law. So that's what we need to do in this country, is fight a war of self-defense, which is, we've done it before. It's in our genes. It's in our heritage. The Revolutionary War was not a rebellion. It was a war of self-defense for us to be able to return to self-rule, which is what we had after our king in England abandoned us. Because according to Vattel's Law of Nations, your sovereign is required to defend your butt. And if he fails to defend you, then he set you free. So the purpose of the king was to defend you. He had to protect you, or he was violating his duties. The people, the Israelites, wanted a king so they could be like the other people. I think they wanted a king to defend themselves, to lead them into battle, perhaps. And Yahweh was upset because Yahweh, prior to Saul, the first king, was the king. And by the way, we're going to go back to that. We are going to go back to living in the Holy Spirit, which means in relationship with Yahweh, personal, individual relationship, whereby we live according to his will, not our will. So we're not trying to be Yahweh, Creator, Father, God. We're not trying to take his place like Satan tried to take his place. So we have to be careful with this stuff. Anyway, dualism started with Rene Descartes and his Pope. So you and I separate this stuff. Is that an artificial separation? Or is it a bona fide separation? That's a big question. Because if it's not a bona fide separation, we pass away. If it's a bona fide separation, then our soul will drift off from this body that we wear out and discard. And enough of us have had out-of-body experiences that we know we're not stuck in these bodies. We know we can split. Splitting, borderline splitting, is normal, folks. It's a part of life. You see, the stupid bastards, the dumbass psychologists, decided to make it a symptom of mental illness so they could rule over you and hold it over you, lord it over you, dominate your ass, control you, abuse you. Which is what my girlfriend tried to do to me, and we ended up breaking up because I wasn't going to be dominated by her. That ain't natural order. At least I don't think so. I'm sure the ladies listening to this are going to disagree with me. And I got some people out there who were friends who I guess don't like me much. I think they're watching my videos, and I think they're females, and I think they're full of feminism. Maybe even the Jezebel spirit. I think that there's a problem with that. I think that some people I thought were friends probably are biting my back in the background. I know I got a weird text message, and it's like a group they're discussing, and I said, and they asked me, Linda, how are you doing? Linda? I'm not Linda. And I told them who I was, and said, yes, we all know. I said, we? Yes, we. And I'm sitting there thinking, what the hell? I don't see anybody else's phone number, just one showing up here. What's going on? So I think there's a conspiracy among some ladies over there, and I can pinpoint where they are, and I'm going to call the husband up because I know him. I'm going to complain to him, you get your woman under control. No, I'm just going to bring it up to him so he could ask his wife, what the hell is going on here? Leave John alone. My God, didn't you threaten him enough and pick on him enough when you when you had that wine that he brought over at lunchtime? My God, she was not a beautiful, pretty drunk. I'll put it that way. My God. She was embarrassed and she apologized. I'm not going to mention her name or anything. That should stay private. And I know she's going to listen to this thing, so I'm bringing it up. Man, did she scare the hell out of me. And I looked at her husband and I'm thinking, my God, you got a mountain lion on your hands. You just, wow. Anyway, I don't know who submits to who in these marriages and relationships. But anyway, I don't want to get involved in this divide. No, I'm not married. I mean, if Yahweh wanted me to have a wife, he'd have issued me one. And I keep thinking I'm going to run into her at any time. But, the time has passed. It's a done deal. It's not going to happen. It's just not. That's all there is to it. And for some reason, women like to see men married so that they're dominated by another woman. It's just kind of crazy. And that... strange, but it's dynamics. There's an inner dynamic and an outer dynamic. And the outer dynamic is the one you and I see and we recognize all the time. And the inner dynamic is usually quite a bit different. It's like saying men are stronger than women and men dominate. And, men as the head of the household. And yet the inner dynamic is, well, you know how it goes. She will withhold sex or some damn thing, or feed him a good meal or something good. If she's a woman who has anything to her, she'll know how to get what she wants. Yeah, believe me, they all know how to get what they want. And trying to control another person, according to one of my teachers and mentors a while back, sponsor actually, he said in his book, the definition of abuse was trying to control another person, another human being. Oh, I miss him. He was so good. He was so helpful. I saw him when he was aging, and he was not in good health. And he did not recognize me, and it took me a while or maybe he didn't want to I could tell some of him, part of him recognized me, and I had trouble remembering his name as well. It had been so long since we had seen each other, and he was pretty frail at the time, and he was a man, a professional of some good standing, and he's a great man. So what I'm getting at is that psychology is the study of the soul, but psychologists keep themselves as far away from the concept of the soul as possible. And you have to remember, in the old days, there were prophets, and you had, I'm using my left hand here, you had good prophets, and you had bad prophets. And I probably should say, you had good prophets, and you had bad prophets. Anyway, you had prophets that were in good standing with Yahweh, who abided by that Holy Spirit, who were gifted, and usually lived their lives in a symbolic fashion and shared things with other Israelites. They were kind of go-betweens. They were messengers. They gave guidance and warnings, and they delivered messages that were not always well received. So you had good psychologists and you had bad psychologists. You had the prophets of these evil gods, evil things. And psychology has a problem, you see. The Greek letter for psychology is psi. I think that's PSI. Look it up and correct me in the comments. I don't mind. I'm here to learn too. So what's letter psi look like, and what does it remind you of? It's a frickin' trident. A pitchfork. You know? 3 little prong fork up there. I mean, it's like the old pitchfork. Don't see many pitchforks around any day. These days, the pitchforks usually had 3 sharp prongs on them for grabbing hay and throwing it around. But it's symbolic. What else is the pitchfork symbolic of? It's also a trident. Neptune's trident, the god of the sea, the god of the underworld. This is important stuff, folks. You need to understand that all of these allegories, all of these similes, all of these metaphors all have purpose, not just meaning. And if you don't believe me that symbolism over substance has something, or, you know, being ruled by symbols, it's very important. You want to know what you're ruled by? I do too. So go down to your state capitol and look up at that statue that's up there and take a picture of it and blow it up. And go look at the pictures of the old artwork. Art imitates life, and quite often they program us up and lead us through art. And that symbol at the top of the Capitol Dome, you tell me. I already know the answer to it as I'm formulating the question, but of course, I'll give you the question anyway. Is that statue, usually painted gold, at the top of the Capitol Dome or the legislative building or the temple, is that statue Roman or Greek? It's all Greek to me. Remember, the Greeks preceded the Romans, and the Mycenaeans and the Israelites preceded the Greeks. Remember that, because we became the Greeks, And today, you and I don't know who we are or what we are about because we've lost our inheritance, our heritage. That's been taken from us. We've been robbed. It's been destroyed. The evil ones own and run the planet today. They control it all. And right now, from what my big brother tells me, they want out. They're looking for a way out. As he likes to say, and I don't like this much because it kind of wakes me up, because this is what my supervisor always told me. Don't paint yourself into a corner. They got themselves painted into the corners, and they can't get out. And they want somebody to release them from their prisons, from their hells. Not only that, there was a guy a long time ago, one of the few human beings who did not die. His name was Enoch. I think Enoch was an advocate, an orator. I'm not sure what Enoch's profession was, or if he had a profession. But I think he had a profession, and I guess we could say he was a lawyer. Why do I say that? Because the story is, now Enoch was so good and did God's will so well, he got carried up. God carried him up. He walked with God. He just kept walking. He never died. One of the few that didn't have to go through some agonizing death, supposedly. But what did he do? I guess he visited Tartarus, the deep underground. And there was a civilization called Tartaria, and they were in Tartarus. There's got to be an association, folks. I'm just trying to get your mind going so that you can think properly and can discover this stuff. I'm not going to be around much longer. You're going to have to do this on your own. You're not going to have me. You ladies aren't going to have me to kick around. Don't worry, the men do it too, from what I can tell. The devil's in the details. So these angels that were in the deepest part of hell appealed to Enoch. Hey, babe. Hey, bud. Do us a favor. Go see the big guy and tell him, advocate for us. Tell him we've learned our lesson. Ask him to release us. We want to get out of here. They wanted to get out of the prison. Supposedly, the person that put him in the prison was Solomon. Solomon, the Lord of the Rings. The ring bearer. The fellow who apparently was given a ring with the name of each fallen angel in the ring, which gave him power over them. I had a nice ring. I lost it recently, and I do miss it. It was a class ring from Gonzaga in Florence when I studied over there. It had the Florentine crest on it, the fleur-de-lis from the bankers. Yep. See if I can remember them. There were the Gilbertines, and who was the other group? It also began with a G. Oh, I'll think of it slowly but surely. I hesitate to talk because I have trouble remembering and accessing things because I haven't discussed this with anyone in a long time. So I appreciate you allowing me and giving me a little attention. I got a little over 500 subscribers right now. And by the way, Facebook, YouTube, by the way, they're all the same. It's the government behind the scenes, or the corporations behind the scenes, or your universal church with their canon law behind the scenes, or who knows what layer of this onion. Lots of layers to it. So when you think you've discovered truth, keep peeling. You're going to find another layer. It's unending as far as I can tell, but we have to master this. We have to peel that onion. Why? Because we're in a giant labyrinth. We're in a big trap. Remember the Minotaur? Remember the labyrinth? Remember that woman who, if you saw her, the goddess, that she would turn to stone, and apparently she had a bunch of snakes for hair? These myths mean things, and I can sort them out. I can't remember all of it. I've got to get into some books. I bought a book on the Greek gods. I brought the abbreviated version somewhere around here. I figured it would be good to go back to that because you see, the Greek gods were before the Roman gods. And you and I live in Rome, by the way. This is a Roman system. It is Roman law here. And I think we got to go back to Greece. And I really want to go back to Israel, the northern part of the kingdom from which I come. And I got a pretty good idea of which one of the boys I come from. Yep, he had swift feet. Because I got these little tiny feet. And I'm bringing you the message. Some of you are going to realize what I'm referring to right offhand, and I don't want to appear totally crazy. Half crazy is okay, huh? There's a lot to be said about mankind being crazy. And there's a lot to be said about us requiring to be in a relationship with each other. And there's a lot to be said about what happens in isolation. We get our identity and our sense of self by interacting with others. Our being is reflected off of others. So it's like everybody is a mirror, showing you a part of yourself. And sometimes they'll show you what you know, but they see things you don't know about, and they don't tell you that. They keep that to themselves. And if you got a good friend, they'll correct you and they'll make you aware of that. But we don't really want to share our dreams and our goals with our good friends because they tend to undermine them. It seems to be a natural part of the human mind, the human drive. And I don't know if that's to undermine the other guy, and pull the rug out from underneath him, which is what the bad guys are doing to us. And they announced it in about 1868 in Russia that they were going to be doing this. And so they're doing it. And Solzhenitsyn's, Alexander's last book was called 200 Years Together. I think there's only 1 or 2 chapters that have been translated. Why has that book not been translated into English? Because they don't want you to learn the truth. They don't want you to recognize who the devils are, who the bad guys are. And you have to do that. You have to wake up. And you have to self-defense. Yahshua told us, be ye not deceived. That's the Old English. So make sure you're not deceived. Adam, I don't know if he was deceived or not. They claim he wasn't deceived, but he apparently loved his wife too much to accept a new wife from his dad, Yahweh. Yahweh already had tried a previous wife for Adam, and it didn't work out too good. That would be Lilith, who became the screech owl. Yes, the screech owl. Not that big buzzard that they worship in the groves. Yes, the groves outside of San Francisco. The groves. The groves that Canaan started. I think Canaan was the one who started that worship. I'm not so sure. But I do know this, his Uncle Shem warned him time and time again to stop doing the stuff he was doing. But Cain had a lot of followers and they reveled. They had a real good time. So they were doing all of this worship up in the open. That's right. And Shem told his nephew, either you stop with this satanic worship and you stop doing this stuff to the kids and you stop doing these human sacrifices and you stop your cannibalism and your blood drinking and, probably adrenochrome even. You stop doing this stuff or I'm going to clean your clock. Finally, Shem killed Canaan. It's not in the Bible, but it is in a book Eustace Mullins wrote. Eustace Mullins was one of the most well-read men on the planet. How? Why? How is the reason? He actually worked at the Library of Congress for a long time, and he received new manuscripts and cataloged those and put those on the shelf. A lot of those never made it to the shelf. They were suppressed. And he got to read those. So he got to read stuff that you and I don't have access to. And he was there for quite a while. And he actually loved his job so much that he decided he got tired. So he put a cot in the basement of the Library of Congress and spent the nights there quite often. And the FBI marched him out of there. I believe he was fired and they escorted him out of the place. If you can find that story, let us know. We really do need to know about this great man, Eustace Mullins, this great citizen from Virginia. I wish I had met Eustace. I wish that I had woken up earlier. You got to remember, I had a couple of strokes in 2006. I started reading the Bible, and the world changed. I got educated. Was I educated before that? Hell no. I had a doctorate in psychology. I was brainwashed along with all the other creeps out there lording it over everybody else and practicing terribly. Psychology has been used to take this nation down. It's being used to manage the plantation, the planet. That's right. Got to make a video about that, but I'm just going to keep dumping information on you. So at this point, I am getting close to the hour. Not there yet. The hour of power. My God. My God. I don't want to lord it over anyone, but I certainly don't want anyone lording it over me. We don't need this government. We don't need government. We need our Bibles, and we need to cultivate the Holy Spirit. I urge you to buy one of my Bibles. It's definitely worth having because it will help you to learn the proper names. The proper name of Yeshua, who you like to call Jesus, after the god Zeus. That's right. You got the wrong name, baby. You got the alternative Christ. You got the Antichrist. Hey, hold on now. If you don't understand and you're just tuning into this channel, I want you to understand something. Hate the word channel because I'm not trying to channel. I don't do channeling. No. We don't do that. Don't get me wrong. If you sit down with me and you want me to work for you or give you a consultation, sure, I'll pray for you. I'll ask Yahweh, what do you want them to hear? What is it? What message do you want them at this point in life to have? Yahweh, you know a man better than I do. I know I'm supposed to pretend I know it all. Look, when I was a little boy, about 12, I did know it all, and I pissed a lot of people off. They were very irritated, to say the least, because I like a sponge, and I could just spit stuff right back, and I did know all the brainwashing. Didn't know what it was at the time. Man, have I grown up. I think I'm finally grown up. I'm not so sure. Maybe I'm still working on it. Ask my lady friend out in Bakersfield. She'll tell you. she's not too happy with me, I guess. She needs to stop trying to lord it over me. She needs to accept my guidance. But I don't think it's a match for several reasons. And there's several deal breakers there. And just to make sure to end the relationship, she derided basically Yahweh, derided my faith, derided the Bible, and read me the riot act over how horrible all that is. So I didn't read it all. I didn't need to read it all. It was one of the longest text messages I ever got in my life, and that was abusive. So, and it was capital letters yelling at me. So, I mean, I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to be abused voluntarily. I mean, I'm not. Had enough of that already. I really do think that when we leave these bodies behind, we move on and that we stay intact. And I'm going to tell you the truth. And I think this is the fact. Those souls who do not make it, they will be taken apart and cast into the lake of fire. I believe that means that this electromagnetic force field ceases to exist. I believe that is the second death. And I believe Yahshua was trying to warn us. And he told us, do not worry about him who can kill the body. Worry about him that can kill the body, the soul, and the body. So you have all these little devils, these little Satan worshipers who are going to get their comeuppance. And if you want to know a little more, go read something about people's last words, their deathbed utterances. Aleister Crowley's is kind of unusual. He started the Satanic Church, which has two headquarters in the United States of America, by the way. One is up in the Red Rock land, up in Sedona. Yep, that's the western part. East? What was that place? What was that place called in Connecticut that got shot up? What was that place called? Oh, my God. Oh, wow. What was that place called that they did, that Obama ran the false flag personally out of the White House? What was that called? Oh, and that other jackass got sued for something that hurt some families, and he got ordered to pay a huge amount of money. That jackass controlled opposition that my friends think so highly of. Yes, he does utter the truth occasionally, but he is controlled opposition, and he does his job well. Put the name of the place down there. I'm not going to utter it. You get to. The only thing that died there was the truth. You can say that's what Dr. Kent said. The only thing that died was the truth. That devil, the twice born spawn of Satan, as my older brother said, Barack Hussein Obama. He come from both sides of the seed of Satan. You see, Andy explained some stuff to me. And then I read the Bible myself, and I come up with my own ideas. And it was different than what these jackasses are running around talking about Christian identity claim. Yeah, I don't like the name Christian identity very much because it's one word short of what we think of. We think of Christian identity, fill in the blank. I fill in that blank with movement. It was started as British Israelism, and it's morphed over here into Christian identity. And in case you're wondering, the FBI has been right in there helping us out. They said to their agents to stir things up, and their agents actually had some of those churches. Yeah, I have known two of them. One of them is still alive. The other one is deceased. They purposely start these radical groups, opposing sides, to divide us. That's what your FBI does. I wish I could remember what they were called when they were first founded in 1913. They had a different name then, and it got changed to the Bureau of Federal Investigations. But they couldn't call it that at first because they wouldn't have allowed it to exist, because it was all policing was reserved to the states according to the Constitution, and the FBI is not a constitutional body whatsoever. If I was president, I would take them into custody, protective custody, and then I would debrief them. I would have my psychologists. I would have my guys to do what I want and don't worship Satan. Real believers, Bible readers. I'd have them go in and debrief them and make judgment calls as to who actually is loyal and to who actually has done harmful things, wittingly or unwittingly, knowingly or unknowing. I know a lot of us do a lot of stuff, and unbeknownst to us, we don't realize that level of evil. And I thank Yahweh for not putting every bit of the evil in front of my eyes at one time. I could not handle it. I am allowed to see some of it piecemeal, bit by bit, so I can digest it and go, oh shit, I did that. Heck, I didn't even realize what I was doing, or I forgot about that. Now, what do? I don't condemn myself. I remind myself of my higher values, and I embrace those. Once again, I repent, and I make sure not to do that again. Doesn't always work, certainly not instantly. It takes some exercising, it takes some practice, but I've fallen down before. I'll get up and walk again. The sun rises, so shall I. For a little while, in my little bitty ride around the sun. It's not a very long ride, folks. Actually, the solar system goes around the Milky Way. So it's a really short life if you compare it to how long it takes us to go around the Milky Way. 12,068 years, 25,000 years. There's different cycles, different clocks, if you will, different time zones, different days of the Lord. Prepare you the way. Read that Bible. Get ready. Get ready. May Yahweh bless. Man, did I get carried away.